Good morning. Thank you, Daniel. Let me share my screen. So good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here today to talk about device identification and the importance of accurate device identification with regards to real-world data and evidence. So to start off, the FDA, just a quick recap here, the FDA got the authority to establish a system of UDI, unique device identification, in 2007 with the passage of the FDA Amendments Act and then the FDA Safety and Innovation Act in 2012 established the timelines to establish the UDI system. The UDI rule was published on September 24th, 2013. And the rule basically has two key requirements. One is that all device labels and device packages must bear a UDI. Sometimes the UDI must be on the device itself if the device is reused or if it's intended to be reprocessed between uses. The key data must be submitted to the Global Unique Device Identification Database, or the GUDID. So just a real quick recap, like Daniel said, perhaps everybody knows this already, but what is a UDI? Just a level set. The UDI is basically composed of the device identifier and the production identifier pieces. The yellow piece that you see here on screen is the device identifier. It basically identifies a given model or a version of a device, and also in the UDI regulation, we refer to the labeler of the device, which essentially means the person whose name is on the device label. As you can see on this fictitious label on the screen, this can be a manufacturer, this can be a third-party labeler. It essentially identifies those three key pieces. And that's where the potential and the power of UDI lies in several areas, such as aggregating adverse events, identifying the performance of a device specific to a given version or a model, an ability to actually identify where things changed and what happened with that change. The green portion is the production identifier portion. This gives us important information about, the production, such as the lot or the batch a device was made, the serial number of a device, which are critical when it comes to things such as recalls, especially with implants. The serial number becomes very important, and the lot number for a majority of the recalls is critical as well. So together, there is a ton of information in this little, numerical or alphanumeric code, as you may have it. And the rule requires that it be in plain language, as you can see in the numbers on the bottom here, and also that it be in a machine readable format, in a barcode format, the linear barcode or the data matrix, or whatever is the latest and the greatest. Moving forward, so what are some of the program objectives? You already heard Daniel refer to some key things, but the main important thing is we want to adequately and accurately identify devices through distribution and use. And that's the key. And it allows us to basically document device use in real world data sources, such as electronic health records and clinical information systems, allow for more accurate reporting, review, and analysis of adverse event reports. And we're definitely seeing a lot of adverse event reports coming into CDRH with UDI populated, which is great, will help us evaluate devices over time, and also feed it into looking at new device review and approval process as well. And of course, effective management of medical device recalls. Again, these are some benefits of the UDI program. There is a potential to harness this information for many other uses across the healthcare ecosystem. The UDI rule established implementation timeframes based on device risk class. So class 3 devices had to comply with the requirement in the beginning, followed by class 2 devices, which we have successfully completed, thanks to all the device labelers and manufacturers out there who've spent enormous amounts of resources putting the UDI on the label and putting the information in the Global Unique Device Identification Database. As far as class 1 and unclassified devices, the rule had a date of September 24, 2018. However, we've communicated our compliance policy in CDRH via guidance basically indicating that the enforcement for those requirements for Class 1 and unclassified devices will begin starting September 24th, 2022. So our expectation is by September 24, 2022, all devices that are required to comply with the UDI rule would have a UDI on the label and information in the Global Unique Device Identification Database. So looking at the GUDID and what is there right now, we see now that there are more than 3.3 million records in the database, which is great. You can see from this graph that the submission and intake of the device identification records have gone up as we've hit each compliance state. So looking further a little bit more in depth, we see that a majority of the records in the database are for Class 2 devices, which account for about 70% of device records that are currently in the system. And 35% of those are associated to implantable devices based on the assigned FDA product code. Again, this data is current as of November 1st. And if we look to see what medical specialties are represented, orthopedic is the highest with about 32% of the records in the system now belonging to orthopedic devices, followed by general and plastic surgery devices, and then dental devices. So we have all this data in the system, and we make all of this available for public access and use through the Access GUDID website, which is a public portal that is managed by the National Library of Medicine. We provide NLM daily data updates, which then get uploaded and made available for everybody to search and download device data. And we also have useful APIs based on user requests to query device information automatically. Looking at Access GUDID a little bit more, this just shows you a search on stent, shows about 32,000 records as are returned if you search on stent. And on the left-hand side, there are several filters that you can filter by company name, brand name, the device class, and also FDA product code, and so on. On the right-hand side, you can export just the results set, but you can also go up and download the data that we sent to NLM, which is by daily download or weekly download, and we also have a monthly download, or the entire database can be downloaded as your need, based on your needs. Further looking at a single device, I've just blacked out here because we don't want to single out any one company. You see that all the device identifier details that is submitted to the GUDID are in fact made available for public consumption. I believe with the exception of one or two data fields like listing number, which we cannot release based on confidentiality requirements, pretty much everything is available. You can expand each of these plus signs on the left side to get additional detail on any device that you are interested to look up. GUDID usage, this is just for October. I did not have the opportunity to look over the past few years. We did launch Access GUDID in 2015, but looking at October 2021, we had close to 50,000 users, averaging about 4,500 sessions per day. The users span across the globe, and even though United States being the highest, international users make up about 40% of the traffic to the Access GUDID website. Looking at the download, you see download is quite popular. In the month of October, there were more than 2,000 downloads for GUDID data. Now the API request, as I mentioned, we have 4 different APIs. The lookup API is very widely used with almost 13 million users just in the month of October. The parse UDI API being the second most popular with close to 900,000 users as well. So I think it's pretty evident, I hope, that the infrastructure has been laid, right, for the UDI system. Now we have a established standardized system to identify devices. Thanks to, again, all the labelers for taking on the work to place us, first of all, come up with a UDI system, determine which system you want to follow out of the 3 issuing agencies we have, place the UDI on the label, and when necessary on the device itself, and you've submitted data to the FDA GUDID. So the infrastructure is in place, and now we are ready to actually harness this fantastic work in adoption and implementation of UDI. And in fact, even here, tremendous amount of work has already been done, which is really what is exciting and inspiring for people like me who have been in the UDI space for a while now. Most encouraging, honestly, is the incorporation of the UDI device identifier in the X12 standard, which is used for claims processing. So the latest version, 8012, included it. There was a tremendous amount of work put by the UDI team to promote this and to push for this and to work with all stakeholders. So we're super excited about this. There is still a lot of work that needs to happen. CMS actually needs to adopt the standard to be able to, for claims to be processed using this, but we're continuing to monitor the space and continuing to advocate for that to happen. So looking forward to that. That would be a huge win all across the ecosystem. As far as real world data, we know last I heard there were more than 400 electronic health record systems across the US that now have the capability to capture UDI as a discrete data field. And that number is increasing. Many hospital systems are now leveraging the data in the GUDID, are also leveraging the data that they are capturing through their EHR systems as well. And you will hear a research update shortly after me talking about that and giving you some more information into that. The MD EpiNet, which is another initiative led out of CDRH, has had several demonstration projects where registries have incorporated UDI, and tremendous amount of value-added lessons learned have come out of those projects that still need to be addressed and looked at, and a lot of work remains to be done. With regards to collaboration and engagement of stakeholders, it's, I find it really honestly very inspiring. There has been so much work and engagement from the community in really realizing the benefits of UDI, identifying the challenges, and coming together to work as a group to figure out ways to make progress. Honestly, has been very inspiring. So NEST, we're doing that today. Honestly, very excited to hear the conversation today and to look for opportunities to continue to make progress in UDI adoption. The ARM Learning UDI community has been super active since the beginning days of the UDI program when CDRH started, and a lot of progress has been made. The catalog number work group that the LUC held recommended that, the catalog number is an optional data element, but because UDI is still being, at that time when the work group came on board, UDI was still being implemented. So catalog numbers was essential for hospital systems to take advantage of the GUDID, because that's how transactions were still taking place. So as a result, we saw an uptick in the number of GUDID records that were populated with catalog number. So that was a great win-win for everybody, and we continue to encourage labelers to populate the catalog number field as they move forward. The work group on clinically relevant size spent a lot of time in identifying the correct clinically relevant sizes that need to be included as an optional list of values in GUDID for cardiac devices. Now, that was a huge win, but we need to continue that work in other device areas and mimic what we were able to accomplish for that cardiac device space. So also recalls, the Learning UDI Community Work Group has just put out a report on recommendations for leveraging UDI in the medical device recall space. So, there is a tremendous amount of value-added information there that we are looking at. So such stakeholder collaboration has been phenomenal. Now, globally, we in FDA are continuing to work with our colleagues across the globe in doing UDI education, participating in work groups. We work together to draft the documents that are out there on the IMDRF website, which is a UDI guidance, UDI application guide, and also a UDI data dictionary, if you will, across different regulators. So we continue to look for opportunities to work on open challenges. And we do hear from labelers that harmonization of requirements across the globe is critical for them. And definitely we recognize that and continue to work in that space. Internally in CDRH, going back to I just talked about recalls. CDRH hosted a patient engagement advisory committee meeting last month, and the focus was device recalls and how to improve medical device recalls. And UDI was significantly highlighted by all stakeholders, asking for UDI to be leveraged better than what we're doing today in our processes. And we are looking at the recommendations that came out of that group, that meeting, along with the Learning UDI community report, and looking for how we can promote inclusion of UDI to really further patient safety in the space. And I mentioned we are seeing a lot of UDIs being submitted as part of MDRs, which is fantastic. And we thank all of you who are submitting reports. If you have UDI information and you're submitting an MDR, we want you to include UDIs. Please do that. And we're definitely looking to utilize that and use it for aggregate device reviews. So we do have a call to action from CDRH that we would like to, ask all of you to step up to the plate to do. Consistent high quality data is super important, right, for this to be really successful. And for GUDID to serve as your catalog of device identification, to serve as the master source of data, we needed to have good quality data. And we do hear that we get information from healthcare providers through Access GUDID portal as they try to use data about data discrepancies. We have a automated email that goes out on certain data checks that we are doing internally, and we notify you and say, hey, we find a problem with your record, please correct it. So when you get those emails, when you hear a reach out, whether from one of your customers or a healthcare provider, please take a moment to review your information and update it. The database itself has been updated to allow for data updates. It was difficult at one point, but now we have ability for you to unlock your record and make your updates. We're allowing you to download your data, so it's easier for you to do a comparison against your internal systems. So please take advantage of those opportunities, and in order to really push the needle forward in adoption and use, having high quality data is super essential. I talked about optional data elements, this catalog number. It's really critical if you have that data to please go back and put that in. Contact information, right, is really important for patients and healthcare providers. And it's a value added business advantage for you to have your contact information in there so you can hear from your customers. So please, here is a call out to improve GUDID data quality by establishing a process for routine review and update. If you hear that a GMDN term has been obsoleted, please go and update the GMDN information, because all this data is being used more and more so as we reach September 24, 2022, all the devices that require UDI as per the regulation would have the information. And now is the time to really get this data cleaned up. So call to action for all of you. And for all of you who are not labelers, if you do see data quality problems, please do notify us and notify the device labeler or the manufacturer so that they are able to address it. So moving forward, we are focused in CDRH on ensuring that the objectives of the UDI rule are realized, that there is accurate identification of devices throughout the distribution chain, all the way into capturing into real world data. We're focused on that, very excited to be in the space where we actually have all the data now and we're ready to begin to make some progress in leveraging and harnessing this information, and really appreciate the community working together to move the needle forward. And I had to put this up. This was a quote that Terry Reid had used in one of her presentations a couple of years ago, and it's still, sort of rang true with me. I searched for other quotes, but nothing fit, right? It always seems impossible until it's done. So a lot has been done, and that's what's inspiring when one takes, just takes a moment and look back on all the progress that's been done. So the challenges for UDI adoption seems tremendous, but definitely it is possible with community engagement, with stakeholder engagement as we have today in such collaborative environments. So we look forward at the FDA to work with all of you to continue to make progress, and we'll be listening today on the conversation and the dialogue and the opportunities for improvement. Here are some UDI program resources for you. And that ends my presentation, and I'm happy to take any questions. I do see a question. The UDI is still being redacted in the MDRs and MOD. Is there a plan to make those public, unredact that field? Yes, the answer is we are considering, we are actually evaluating that and looking to see if that is possible. So thank you for asking that question. We're definitely looking at that. Question on how will this be available for diagnostic tests? Are you asking about GUDID data? Because GUDID data does contain IVD devices. So there is data available for diagnostic tests as well. The rule does include the UDI rule requirements applied to IVD devices as well. If no further questions, I would now like to pass on the baton, if you will, to Drs. Dhruva and Wilson. They will be providing a research update on the evaluation of UDI uptake by health systems. Take it away, Drs. Dhruva and Wilson.